Now, after visiting Egypt and the Rafah border with Gaza, Eir Uachtaráin Mary Robinson has called on states to implement decisive measures to halt the unfolding genocide and famine in the region. Mary Robinson joins us now. Mary, you've seen a lot in your time as president of this country. You've visited famine scenes in your time in the UN. Your emotions and your feelings after returning from your visit to the Rafah border with Gaza?
It was certainly very emotional at the Rafah border itself because it was so silent. Trucks go in very early in the morning, and we saw 2 trucks for the 20 minutes we were there come out full of medicine and full of food piled up, refused to unload. And otherwise it was silence. And then on one side you have people so anxious to provide food and all the other materials, and on the other side you have a go slow going on of receiving the aid at all. When with the help of the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we had flown down first of all to Al Arish, and that's a huge area of warehouses where you have stocks piled up, partly those not able at the moment to enter. Just refused entry or turned back by Israel. As I said, wheelchairs, crutches, generators, food, oxygen cylinders, all the life-saving things that are needed, and they can't get in. Only food and medicine can get in if it's not turned back. And the UN told us of the 1,000 trucks during July that they had sent ready to go, sent in. 70% were sent back. And I've just heard today from so many aid agencies, they're saying the same thing now. I think we may have helped them, created a space for them to be able to speak out about the fact that they're not able to get the food and the medicines that are ready and available. That is the shocking part. It's the deliberate, that's why we call it a human-induced famine.
Can you begin to fathom the reasoning of the Israeli government in letting this situation happen? Well, sorry, letting it happen is an understatement. They're very much involved in this situation happening. Well,
Helen Clark, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, who was head of the Development Agency of the UN and very experienced, she spotted something really crucial, that there's been a reduction of 40% in the live birth rates in Gaza for the 6 months. Now, that means that women are too weak to have babies safely. The babies die because they are too weak to live. That there are there's no possibilities of a safe birth. There's no hospital facilities, etc. So that's a 40% reduction of population. And then we've so many killings even of people, including children, trying to get food for their families. I think we know what's happening, unfortunately. And that's why we say it is an unfolding genocide.
You've called for countries to implement decisive measures to halt this unfolding genocide and famine. What exactly would you like to see happening?
We'd like to see the measures that governments themselves identified at that meeting that I attended in New York, hosted by France and Saudi Arabia. We heard the reports of working groups of different countries, and Ireland was involved as a co-chair of a working group. And these working groups really said there should be no transfer of arms and weapons components to Israel. That must be suspended immediately. That there must be targeted sanctions. And we want sanctions on Prime Minister Netanyahu and the whole of his security cabinet that talked about the invasion now of Gaza City, that further exacerbation of the situation. We want, above all else, the EU in particular to suspend existing and future preferential trade agreements. So we urge a qualified majority of EU member states to invoke Article 2 of the EU-Israeli Association Agreement. That's all about preferential trade. Why are we giving preferential trade to Israel when the Israeli government is committing famine and an unfolding genocide?
Are you optimistic this will happen?
Well, there is momentum. We've seen that Germany has suspended its arms, we've seen that more and more countries are recognizing. We fully understand recognizing doesn't stop a famine, but it does create political momentum when 3 G7 countries are going to recognize in September the UK, France, and Canada. And when Australia recognised in the last few days, I think Helen is confident that New Zealand will follow. And most countries of the world have already recognised. And it's all about the political track. We had 2 objectives as elders. One was to tell truth to power about the blockage of aid going in and the complete failure to deal with the starving people in Israel, in Palestine. And the second track was to create the political will following that meeting in New York.
2 last very quick questions before we let you go. The Occupied Territories Bill, do you have a view? Should we press ahead with it? There is some view it could be difficult for US companies based here, and that maybe, well, obviously, I think there's no question a European strategy would be much more effective. But do you have a view as to whether or not we should go ahead with the Occupied Territories Bill?
I'm actually not going to comment on that because it's a little bit political, and as a former president, I think it's better not to comment. But I would urge Ireland to put heavy pressure for a 2/3 majority. Apparently, we're quite close to it. That's the most important thing. Article 2 on preferential trade is far more significant for Israel than any trade with the occupied territories. Ireland has big trade with Israel. Big trade.
Yeah.
And that's the preferential trade. That's the one. And Ireland should be doing everything possible to get the 2/3 majority. And
as you say, that would be a lot more effective.
Yeah, and Israel would feel the pain. At the moment, Israel has total impunity, and countries are just not taking the steps they could take.
Okay, final question. You mentioned total impunity. Can you reason, and I don't ask this question lightly, can you actually reason with this Israeli government? Will they listen to any pressure?
I think they will listen to one man. They will listen to President Trump, and he could stop it very quickly. Because he could say, no more arms, you must, first of all, not invade Gaza City, and secondly, you must open all the border crossings, have a peace. Of course, we want the hostages released, and indeed the political prisoners held arbitrarily by Israel, the Palestinian prisoners. But the hostages must be released immediately as part of a peace deal that has to happen now. And we have to have all of the border crossings open. The food is all there. I was told by the UN and by the Egyptian Red Crescent, they are ready tomorrow. The foreign minister, whom we had a meeting with on Sunday, a long meeting with, talked about the efforts they're making to have peace, to involve Hamas and Israel in a peace truce now to let the food in. And they also, affirmed they have all the stocks ready to move in, so we can stop this famine tomorrow. And I think President Trump has a huge responsibility because he is increasingly seen to be very complicit in what's happening.
Uachtaráin, Mary Robinson, thank you indeed for talking to Newstalk Breakfast this morning.